Hi, everybody. It is Cheryl from Tutoring with Cheryl, and I'm with the Student Success Squad today. And my guests are Tina McMillan and Kylie Larsen. And we are going to be talking to you all about tips for school success, meaning to school success, because we are right around the corner in the state of Nebraska where I'm at. It is the end of July. In a matter of 2 weeks, our students are going to be back to school. And I know where Tina's at up in Canada, she says that the kids are back to school mid-September. But this conversation can be watched any time of the year. It does not need to be just a back to school focus. It could be at any point. And we have lots of tips for your kids to be successful. Tina and I have been doing these conversations the longest, so I'm going to have Tina introduce herself. Tina, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here with us again. I'm Tina McMillan with Atypical Tutors. So I work with kiddos that have ADHD, autism, and dyslexia specifically. And I work with other kids too, but my focus is on the neurodivergent spectrum. So that's kind of what I work with up in Canada and online. So anywhere in the world, actually.
Awesome. Awesome. Kylie, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Kylie Larsen. I'm in North Carolina, and I own an academic tutoring company called Student Success Collective. We serve kindergarten through 12th grade in all core academic subjects for the most part, and we have American Sign Language, Spanish, and executive functioning coach as well. And I'm just excited to be here and talk about how to be successful going back to school.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'm so glad that you're both here with me today. We've been doing these conversations for quite a while, and I always learn something when we go through these. But for those people who don't know who I am, my name is Sheryl Uehling. I'm the owner of Tutoring with Cheryl, and I focus on literacy skills for students ages 6 and above. And I just got my first adult learner. So I can say now that I work with adults, which is really amazing. I never thought an adult would reach out to me. But I really focus on reading fluency, reading comprehension, writing, spelling, the phonics that the kids might need, the morphology, all those things. So if you're looking for somebody who can help you with that, I would be your person. All right, our topic today is really talking about tips for back to school success. And again, like I said, any time of the year, this is a timely conversation. And so we each came with 3 ideas that we want to share. And we're going to work backwards from our third. So we're going to go third, second, first. And since I'm talking, I'll start the first one, okay? So, and I'm going to grab my notes so I don't mess up. I know I might still mess up, but when I'm done, if you guys have any ideas that you want to add to that, feel free. But I'm going to talk about waking up and going to bed. And they can both cause problems for parents, okay? So what we want to do is your kids have been running wild all summer long, having a great time, which is wonderful, and I'm so glad that they've done that. But when our kids are expected to be out the door at a certain time and they haven't really practiced that, we probably want to build in some practice. So we want to gradually get back into the morning and evening routine so it's not a shock for everybody's system, including yours. And so my helpful tip would be to start staggering your wake up and sleep times, 5 to 10 minutes each night, moving one direction or the other until you get to the time where they're just naturally going to go. So 2 weeks before, maybe it's 5 minutes, you wake up sooner, 5 more minutes, you go to bed, 5 more minutes. And what is this going to do? And again, work until you master your time. It's going to decrease your stress, okay? Super, super important. And one other thing about the wake up and the bedtimes, because I'm going to keep it short, we've got a lot to talk about today, is when you go to bed, and I did this as a school teacher, and sometimes if I have to be someplace really important, I still do it. Lay out your clothes the night before. If you've already made your decision, that's one less thing that you have to worry about in the morning. Pack the lunches at night. I know you're a busy parent, but if you're packing lunches, just do it at night. Again, no stress in the morning. You're going to grab it. You might not like what you packed. It's going to be fine. It's fine. And then have your kids pack their bags the night before. So you're thinking through what needs to be in that bag. Put the jacket by the door, the shoes by the door, so that when you are ready to walk out the door, they're ready to go. Would either one of you want to add a little nugget to that?
Sure. I actually have a student, he's going into grade 9, which here is kind of where our high school starts because they have 9 through 12. So his newest goal is to try to get more sleep. And the way he's going to do that is because he has a television in his room, which is pretty common. So he knows there's a timer on the television, and he knows that it will go off, but then he will get up and turn it back on. So his goal is to not turn it back on, to try to get some more sleep. So that's kind of his goal. And I told his parents about it too, because we talked about it during one of our sessions. So everybody's on board. So everybody's there to help him succeed. So I can't wait to find out if it's actually going to work. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's great. I didn't even think about the technology when I put that together. Kylie, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, one thing that I thought of that helps me as a parent is don't fight what is already kind of happening in your household. Go with your family's flow. So if you have a certain place in your kitchen where you put those lunch boxes together, go ahead and clean out a cabinet or a drawer there and put all the lunchbox snacks right there, easily accessible. If there is a natural place where the kids want to put their book bags, then there's no rule that says they have to be hung on a hook here, there, or somewhere. Just put a big basket right there. And it really helps me to kind of go along and not fight the flow that we already naturally establish.
I love that. Those are great, great tips. All right, Tina, when we were talked before, you thought that number 3 would be trying something new. So here is our next tip for back to school success. Go ahead, Tina, take it away.
All right, here I go. So trying something new. So challenging yourself maybe to something that you hadn't thought about doing before. Maybe you're finally tall enough to play basketball or volleyball. Maybe you're finally able to do that. Or maybe you're actually starting at a new school. You know, who knows, for whatever, maybe you've moved over the summer and you're going to a new school. So it can be very scary, but if you turn that around, it can also be very exciting. So I was trying to turn that energy. So it's still energy, regardless of if it's in the scary field or if it's in the excited field, it's still energy. It still needs to go somewhere. So why not redirect it to somewhere a bit more constructive rather than just being terrified and not being able to sleep because you're so worried. Think about all the possibilities. You know, it's really hard to do that. I know, even as grown-ups, we get locked in and we keep thinking of, oh, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? And then we get stuck in that. So try to change your thoughts around a little bit as well. Yeah, that's all I had for number 3.
I love that. And you know, when you talk about the trying something new and taking a risk and whatever, I've been reading the book Junie B. Jones and the Stinky School Bus with a couple of my earlier readers. Junie B. Jones did not want to go to school. She fought it. But in the meantime, she learned a really valuable lesson. Like, you know, some things you just can't fight. When you're talking about trying something new, Tina, would there be something at home that they could try before? Can you think something very specific that maybe you've recommended to a parent?
Absolutely. I always encourage my kids when they were growing up, teach them how to cook things as they grow older. They can be exposed to more things as they become more secure and confident and trustworthy in the kitchen. You don't want them burning the house down while you're out. So teaching them how to cook something that they like. Maybe it could just be somebody's birthday is coming up. Oh, maybe Dad would really love if you made this for him, or Grandpa or Grandma, or you're a sibling. Maybe you can make something as simple as toast. You know what I mean? And present it, maybe have them give them breakfast in bed or something like that, something they can build upon. So cooking skills you can always build upon. There's so many options to learning a new type of food, maybe learning Mexican food, maybe learning Italian food, whatever your favorite food is, maybe making a pizza. You always go out for pizza. Why don't we make one? And see what's involved in making one. And you might decide after, well, it's easier just to order it than to make it because it takes more time. But then you can personalize it, right? You can put it however you want. You can make it half and half or 2/3 and 2/3. You can work on fractions. You can work some sort of stuff into it as well. I know we're kind of always in the teacher mode, so we're always trying to think of how can we make this a teaching moment. But yeah, I would say like cooking would be an amazing skill to learn at any age.
I love that. Kylie, did you want to add anything to the trying something new?
The only thing that it made me think of is I think it's wonderful to encourage our kids to take risk. And I also want them to understand not to give up if it doesn't work out the first time they take a risk. And so I love reminding them of stories of like Michael Jordan, who was cut from the varsity basketball team his 9th grade year. Or there's just so like the guy that invented the Dyson vacuum went through 5,000 prototypes before he found the one that worked. So there's lots of stories that, the only way to lose is to quit. So just keep trying things until you find your place. You
Right.
will find your place eventually.
And what did they say? That you miss 100% of the shots you don't take?
That's right. That's right.
Very, very good. Now, Kylie, when we were talking beforehand, your number 3 was about making connections. And the points you brought up are great. So go ahead and share those right now.
So I think it's really important, especially if a child is nervous about going back to school, or they're going to a new school, or they're transitioning from one level to another level, that they make some connections before they walk in on the first day. So I would really encourage the student or the parent, if it's for younger students, that they take the effort to get together, have some play dates or some sort of interaction with some students that will be at school in their grade level or in their class coming up. And then also, every student should know at least one trusted adult that they can go to in the school. It doesn't matter who they are. It can be someone in the front office, custodian, librarian, teacher, just someone. And then my other tip is for students to try to learn the names of their teachers as quickly as possible.
Right, especially if they have more than one teacher, because when you're the teacher and you're in the classroom and you just hear teacher,
Or
that's
miss.
great. Yeah, or miss or whatever. It's just, well, number one, it's a great thing to know, because if you have a problem at school, you do need to know your teacher's name. But number two, it's kind of a form of respect too. So that is something that our kids should know. All right, so we all shared our number 3. Now we're going to go to our number 2 tip. And my number 2 tip was about technology and school resources and teaching expectations for those. Okay, so as a school teacher, and it really is going to depend on the school district, what the expectations are, but many times kids will be issued a computer, an iPad. Well, I hope that your child is also bringing home things like books from their classroom, books from the library. Maybe your child is going to be given a little bag of resources that they're supposed to have at home for the whole week, and then you're going to take them back. Well, let's talk about what the expectation for those things are. First of all, remind your child that those resources are not theirs. They're not a toy. They cost money, and if you break it, you buy it. Because some parents are always really surprised when you bring back a damaged book to the library that had Kool-Aid or something spilled all over it, or the dog tore it up. They're suddenly surprised that they were charged for that book. But my question to you is, well, what did you expect would happen? Okay, so let's be realistic about the expectations. So how can you practice this at home? First of all, I think it's really important that we set boundaries on things at your own home. Okay, how would you treat Okay, if you gave your child your phone, would you want them to step on it, throw it, peel off the screen, wreck the little thing that goes on the inside, throw it as far as you can, lose it in the bottom of their book bag, leave it in the car on a hot day and have somebody spill their sundae on it? No, none of those things. But all those things actually happen, okay? So whether it's a tech item or, like I said, a hardbound book or something like that, let's treat them with respect. So we need to have some rules at home. Okay. And I think you need to set clear expectations for how you want your own things at your house to be, used. And again, you could even do the thing at home. If you break it, you buy it. Well, if your child's not making any income, they can work that off, because these are all things that will actually happen in the real world. Trust me, if your child walked into a store and they were fiddling around with something and dropped it, I don't think you're going to walk out of the store without paying or something, part of it or all of it. So we need to teach that there are consequences so that it is not a surprise when they go back to school. And that is a tough conversation to have. But if your child brings home the school laptop and they like to peel off every L or space bar, I'm sorry, you just wrecked the machine. And while you might think that's funny, it's not funny. So have those hard conversations before you actually need to be in the principal's office having them. Would either one of you like to talk about technology or school resources expectations? Can you tell that was a hot button of mine?
I have been in the classroom and dealt with plenty of laptops missing keys, missing the labels that are used for inventory,
Mhm.
all the things, and it is so frustrating. And as far as resources, the only thing I can speak to here is my own experience with my daughter, who is notorious for getting the, you haven't turned in your library book paper sent home. And so what I found was happening is she was just putting them on the shelf with all of our other books. She had no awareness of which books belonged to whom. And so I just put a little tray, library books on the shelf so that those things went back there and I didn't have to hunt. We have a lot of books in our house, so it was a
Yeah,
problem.
you have a lot of kids, you already have your own resources, and I like how you created a system for that. So again, having that system, where are you going to keep that iPad or that computer that got sent home?
And
Don't
how
it
are you
should
going to
it should
charge
yeah.
it every night? I mean, I know
Mhm.
in our state, in middle school and high school, the kids do take their laptops home and they are responsible for charging them every
Yep.
night before school.
Right.
Yep. And you show up without your charger, you're just out of luck. So yeah, really teaching that, I think again, it comes down to the respect for the stuff that's being sent home and the responsibility. All right,
Right.
Tina, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just had kind of a funny thought, sort of.
Mhm.
Those signs where you go to a construction site and it'll have so many days since the last accident or something like that, or somebody got hurt. What if you had a sign every day, how so many days since we lost something, or everything goes in the one bin, and for every day that something gets turned into that bin where it's supposed to go, or get it ready for the next day at school, they get like some kind of a reward, and after 30 days they get something, they can use that reward to make something else. Do you know what I mean? So
Oh yeah,
I love
I
that.
think it has to be like a daily thing. I don't think you could just say it, at the end of the week or whatever. I think if it's every day, you draw attention to it, and then that concept can be used for so many different things as well that they can work towards.
Kids are really into like all these apps. They'll have a streak going. They've done, I know Duolingo has where it tells you how many days in a row you have been on the app. So
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Those are great ideas. All right, now Tina, your second item was reset, mindset, and growth. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I was thinking like a reset just seemed to make sense to me. You're starting a new year, so it's kind of resetting your mind, because maybe last year really sucked. Maybe it was just nothing was going right. Maybe you had a fight with your best friend, you never made up over the summer, you're dreading seeing them again. It could be anything like that. So you're resetting. So just kind of wipe that slate clean and then start over again, fresh new eyes looking at something, and I guarantee things will go better. I guarantee it. It's just like if you're a hammer, everything is a nail. Do you know what I mean? So if you can just focus on being like positive and living in the moment, if you can. I know it's tricky to get wound up in everything. There's a couple of different strategies people use, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you're just wound up and everything is driving you crazy, stop and then name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can I can't remember can smell, and then the last thing is you can taste, because you don't want them trying to find 5 things you can taste. That gets a little crazy. They're putting everything in their mouth. That's not good. So something like that, just to reiterate the growth mindset idea.
I'm glad you didn't say 5 things you can taste.
I know. I always
how
have to
many
think
things
it's
in
like,
this room
make
can
sure
I
get it
lick?
I know. I always have to make sure I get that one right, because it's sending the wrong message otherwise. Yeah.
That's great. That's a good way to kind of just calm yourself down to. Yeah. I love that. Do you want to add anything to that, Kylie? Reset, mindset, and growth?
Well, I just absolutely, even as a teacher, I told my own students every day is a new day in this classroom. I don't care what happened between us yesterday. We're all having a fresh start today. So definitely giving that same attitude toward a new school year is really important.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
even to the next day, like when we have a challenge or an obstacle, a circumstance that doesn't go our way, being able to recover and reset and get back to it is a great skill.
And that's something that you can even practice at home with your
Mhm.
kids when they get in trouble. You say, it's fine. We're past that now. I love you. We're going to keep going. Everything's okay. And
That's
so
right.
it's something that you can practice at home. Kylie, your number 2 conversation or topic is communication skills. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I am speaking specifically about how to ask questions, because when students communicate a problem, then there's going to be a solution that happens sooner rather than later. And so specifically thinking about how to ask their teacher for help, when is an appropriate time to ask versus when is not an appropriate time. We don't want to interrupt the teacher in the middle of them up speaking to, the world does not revolve around them. There are other things going on. But when that teacher has a moment, maybe standing out in the hallway during class change or grading papers or something, the teacher will have expectations, but finding the appropriate time to ask and practicing the words. So a lot of times parents will give advice, but it will sound something like, well, just speak up for yourself. But what does that mean? And how do I do it respectfully? What are the words that I'm going to use? So I even told my own son last year I was really talking about when I was a teacher, things that would get on my nerves. And one of them was when kids would ask before they tried. So I told him, I said, make sure you've tried on your own. And when you ask the teacher, tell them, I've already tried this on my own and I'm stuck right here. Can you help me? And, I'm not encouraging students to ask a ton of questions, but students that ask questions do get help. They get instructions read to them. They get the first step given to them. So if they can figure out and navigate when and how to ask questions, I think that's a very powerful skill for students.
Right, because, and that made me think back to my classroom days when a student would raise their hand and go, I don't understand this. And I would just say, okay, what part don't you understand? And if they couldn't do that, I would say, get started and then come back and show me, just like what you said.
Mhm.
And typically they could solve their own problem. They just didn't really either want to take the effort, or then maybe they needed more time to think about it. Or maybe I would just say, well, how about if we write the problem down, or I'll read it to you and then I'll come back and check on you in a little bit. And then they were off and running. So sometimes they just needed that little extra push. But I do agree, if they ask questions, they should be addressed. But again, I like how you're saying the question should be specific. Like how would you do that? How would you practice that? Yeah, that's a good one. Tina, did you want to add anything to that about communication skills?
Yeah, especially about questions. I've got 2 ideas. One thing, I always tell my students too, that if they have a question, I guarantee that there's another kid in the class that has the same question as you do. So you're not just doing it for yourself, you're helping other people too. You just don't know it. But and if they even listen to someone else asking a question, I bet you they had the same question too. Maybe they were just too nervous to ask, or they didn't want to feel like they're, that they're not smart, or people look at them a different way, or, make fun of them after. And I had another thought. What if teachers, I know it might be difficult to do, but what if they had a question box? So it's anonymous. And kid have a question and they still couldn't get it by the end of the day, and it's still relevant for the next week or whatever. They could write the question down and they can put it in the box. And the teacher the next morning would just answer the question. Doesn't have to identify who asked the question, because chances are more than one kid will have that question. And if it's a question that, deserves an answer, and probably the teacher would probably recognize the writing of the kid. They probably would know who it is. But I'm just like, if they don't want to reveal that identity of that person, if they feel kind of, shy or whatever, to not be, not to be singled out, then they could just put it in a box and then they can answer the question. That's what I was thinking.
I think those are all great suggestions. Okay, now we're all down to our top tip for school success. Okay, so my top tip for school success, back to school or anytime, is let's work on those manners. Okay, and so I'm really talking about being respectful to everybody, not just, your teacher or the school bus driver or whatever, like in general, just having good manners. And when I was in school, as a school teacher, we had a little checklist that we did with our students. It was a social emotional checklist, and I was teaching 5th grade for the majority of the time. And so we would always go through this little checklist and say, does your student demonstrate this? And they would be like beginning, mastered, or proficient, or mastered, or whatever. Master would be like, you show that all the time. And I think it gave valuable insight into how children were behaving. But then when I would have problems at school with a student with their behavior, I would refer to some of these things. And so some parents would be like, well, my child would never do that. And I'm just going to tell you right now, parents, and because I know, because my kids are not perfect, I wasn't perfect, my grandchildren aren't perfect, nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes and these things can happen. But I'm going to really encourage you to work on these simple things, and they can all be practiced at home. And I also want to mention that your teacher's going to like you better, and you're going to have more friendships because you're going to be a very likable person. Okay. So in order to have a friend, you have to be friendly. And so here's some things that you can be friendly with. You can listen and follow the directions, raise your hand and wait to be called on, say please, thank you, excuse me, and I'm sorry. Share your things, even though they're your things, we can share. And then those that are sharing or borrowing should be giving them back. Keep your hands to yourself. That includes your feet and other objects. Use an indoor voice. Be on time. Keep your area clean and follow school rules. And I have a feeling that if you even did part of those things, you would have a really great school year. And those are all things that can be practiced at home. So would either one of you like to interject any ideas there?
I definitely had some thoughts during that. I'll probably be not politically correct here, but teachers are human, and we have things that annoy us, and it impacts our day and how we treat people. And so one of the questions I ask my kids' teachers, like, I want to know, is my kid the annoying one? Is my kid the rude one? Is my kid the one that is constantly sick, but they're really not sick? Are they the one tattling on other? There are certain behaviors that students can have that can really impact the learning for them and the classroom if it's a constant thing. So I don't really know how that's helpful for parents, but
well, I think
I want to know it as a parent because I am a former teacher.
Yeah, I think the awareness, and then you know what you should be working on at home and having those tough conversations. Listen, parenting is not a simple thing. And we always have to hope that whatever we've done at home is going to show up in the classroom, but I can always spot the families where there are no expectations. And so we really want our kids to be functioning in society, to be able to hold down a job someday. I mean, unless you're planning on paying for everything for your child for their entire life, which I hope you're not, part of it comes down to just being mannerly. Okay. So Tina, did you want to add anything to that about manners?
Oh, I totally agree. I think you guys nailed it. I love that.
Those are uncomfortable conversations, but I think they need to be had. It's something that needs to be had. All right. Now, Tina, your top tip was goal setting.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So again, going back to starting a new year, maybe there's something you could not do last year because you weren't quite tall enough or didn't have the ability, or you practiced and practiced and practiced last year. Now you're feeling so much more confident. So maybe trying a new sport, maybe you're trying out for a team or something like that, or an academic skill. Maybe you're wishing you could write longer sentences, though I know there's probably not a kid on the planet that wants that, but for the teachers, we would love it if you had that as a goal. That'd be amazing. But because your life will be so much easier if you could do that. But maybe they're tired of being told that, oh, yeah, maybe I can't spell very well, or maybe it's math I'm struggling with. Maybe I'll get on top of it this year, or maybe I'll ask for help, just like Kylie was saying, just even asking it. Or even a social skill, like learning how to make a friend. So setting goals, like I want to make one friend this year, one new friend that maybe I didn't, and that. Generally, when you make a goal, it tends to open up a lot of other doors. So by the end of the year, I bet you'll have more than one. Do you know what I mean? And whatever your goal happens to be, I bet you will most likely achieve it. And if not, it's going to open up to something else that maybe you didn't think was even possible unless you had done that. It's almost like, I don't know, kids maybe not know this, but parents will know setting an intention. So if you're setting an intention to achieve something, it generally will, open other opportunities too, which is kind of cool because it changes your mindset a little bit.
I know a lot of teachers will set beginning of the year school goals, but I think it's important to set goals for your house too, just like, like what's that going to look like at home? And then being and I think you kind of mentioned this, but making sure it's specific enough that it's not like so general. Oh, I want to read more books. Well,
Yeah.
is one more book more books, or just
Right. Well,
finishing a book? Like, yeah,
yeah.
you know.
And there's a thing called like a SMART goal, which they do teach in classes. My older students have that. So it's an acronym. So it stands for, each letter stands for something specific. So definitely.
Very, very good. Kylie, do you want to add anything else about goals and goal setting?
The only thing I thought of is that under, you were mentioning like, what does that look like? So under the goal, breaking it down maybe into 2 or 3 identifiable things is helpful.
Okay, very good. All right, now we have our final top tip for back to school success. Again, remember, can be used at any point in time during your school year. And Kylie's going to talk to us about how to stay calm.
So I have had on my mind this year those students that are very nervous about going back to school. They have a lot of back to school anxiety, and that is that's a real thing with real consequences emotionally and physically. And if parents forget how to relate to that, I want them to just think about, like, if they have the Sunday evening like dreads or whatever before Monday morning, that's just a little, dose of what that might feel like. And also, as a parent, and I have lots of great ideas, but I don't want anybody to think that I think I'm perfect, because I'm preaching to the choir here. Like, I need to do all of these things better as well. But we say things like, it'll be okay, that's not going to happen, don't worry. But that's just not helpful. I mean, encouragement and reassurance is good, but practical advice is a lot better. So we are going to play the what if worry game. And so you imagine the situations that make you the most nervous or the most worried. And you think to yourself, what if I can't find my classroom? And you decide, what are you going to do? And you visualize that. What if you don't understand the assignment? What if you get in a disagreement with your best friend? What if you feel really nervous right before a test, and you decide, what are you going to do? What is that going to look like? And you walk through those steps. Not all of those things at once, but I always, usually have questions I ask my kids. And one of those questions sometimes is, what are you worried about this week? And then that way you can have the conversation of how you're going to handle it. And if you know what you're going to do, that can help you stay calm in situations. And thinking like athletes and actors and successful people in general, they visualize themselves being successful, but they also visualize themselves during challenging moments, and they visualize themselves getting through those, overcoming them. Like, what are they going to do if X, Y, and Z happens to overcome that? So that's my advice on staying calm.
And I like how you're going to practice it. Like, you're going to practice, like, this is what I would do. They maybe aren't necessarily going through the motions, but some of them they could. I think that's very, very good. We used to do that all the time in school when we were trying to problem solve different things. Like, okay, here's the situation. Let's come up with 3 ways that we could handle it. Now you can choose one. And so the next time this happens, you can try that. And so, yeah, just giving kids, those skills, I like to call those soft skills, so that they can kind of just navigate through life. I love that. Especially helpful when a child, I might not find my classroom. Middle school is a tough time, when they first are going into, I don't know why my phone is dinging right now. I'm really sorry. When they're first going into these new buildings and new locations, it is a scary thing. Imagine yourself, you have to go to the doctor, a new doctor's office, and the fear you might have. That's what your kid feels like when they're going into a new school. Yeah, for sure. Tina, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are fantastic suggestions. I love those ideas. The only thing I would add, if the kids are a little bit younger, I've done like role-playing scenarios with the kids' stuffed animals. So then they can kind of externalize it, so they don't have to relive the anxiety every time they're thinking about the situation. They can kind of put it on them, and then you can kind of exaggerate like the what if with the younger kids too. It's like, oh, what if all of a sudden this his eyeball popped out? Oh my gosh, what would he do in the classroom? Everyone's going to be laughing at him. What could he do? Does he just pop it back in and pretend nothing happened? Does he throw it at somebody? Does he say, oh, hey, did my eyeball just pop out? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just be silly. You know what I mean? It has a chance to make it silly and make them laugh and make light of it. Not to say that having anxiety is a funny thing. It's not. I'm just saying, just to externalize it a bit so they can look at it from a different perspective, and then they can say, hey, maybe it's not that big of a problem. And I bet you everyone else feels the same way too. Do you know what I mean? Or you can relate to your own stories too. Yeah.
Awesome. We have given our parents so many things today that they are just going to, I hope they took notes on it, but they can always rewatch it. That would be fine. Now, I'm going to add you both as collaborators onto this. So it should show up under your YouTube pages. But what I am going to also share is Kylie had a freebie that she is wanting me to share here. And so I'm just going to quickly share the screen to let you know what it looks like. Kylie, would you like to just explain that very quickly?
Yes. So going back to my concern for kids that are nervous about going back to school, they're transitioning to a different grade. They're going from elementary to middle or middle to high school. I just went through and brainstormed some ideas, and I have the 7 C's. And each of these C's, I always tell parents, like, do not think that you need to do all of this. Like, find one little nugget that makes a difference in your life today. That's the important thing. Like, I can still remember a friend of mine before I had children. She told me, never ask if you're ready to take a bath. Always say, it's bath time now.
Like, there's not an option. You're taking a bath.
Literally life-changing. Just a few little words. So don't get overwhelmed when you're given all of these resources like we love to give. I love to give parents these things, but don't let it overwhelm you. Find the one that your child needs to work on and just work on that one, and don't worry about the rest. But yeah, it gives each C, it defines it. It talks about how to practice it at home, specifically how to apply it at school. So, yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, Tina, I don't know if you've got a freebie, but I have something I just wanted to share that I'm going to be posting on my website. I have all these books behind me, and this year I have been trying to get my students very excited about reading. And so I've been coming to their lessons with a book for each one each week to say, hey, have you seen this book? I really want to show this to you. And so what I put together this year for today's talk was just a quick little freebie that, and it's just going to be underneath my resources, books about going back to school. And these are not Amazon links. I mean, well, they are, but they're not affiliate links. You can just go look at the book. And so they're just different books about really kind of anxiety about going to school. And then I've got some things for like manners that I mentioned, and then also some life skills for some middle schoolers that might come in handy. So that'll just be a freebie on my website. So Tina, did you think of anything that I should be sharing that I can totally open up?
I'm good, actually, because we've done, I still have my thing available on my site, the 4 seasons of social skills. So I still have that on that. That's applicable all year round. So there's that on my site too. And they just click on the link and they can download that as well.
Okay, yeah. And I will include everybody's websites in the description of this video. And we want to thank everybody for joining us. Is there any last words of wisdom that you guys want to share before we end the recording?
Hang in there. The sun will rise tomorrow. And
absolutely.
It's a new day.
And enjoy them while they're kids, because they're not always going to be kids. And then you're going to look back, because I'm an empty nester. So you're going to look back and you'll be like, oh, I miss those days. Even though they sucked at the time, I really miss it. So hang in there.
Absolutely. So we want to thank everybody for joining us, and we'll have a new recording coming soon. So make it a great year. Thanks for joining us, and make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment. Bye-bye.